Kelleher joins us right now, the executive director of USA Hockey. We thank you. And, hey, congratulations. What was it like for you to watch and hear from the guys who you have known since wherever, kids, juniors, to see them drafted into the NHL?
It's amazing for the players, Matt, for sure. I think it's a lot of pride for organization and for a lot of people. As spectacular a day it is for the players and their families, we always think about the coaches, the volunteers, the youth hockey administrators that help get those players to that level. I mean, they don't just show up and get drafted at the NHL, whether it's our players and coaches, the National Team Development Program, or all the junior programs, or really the youth hockey programs across the country. That's kind of what I go back to during the draft. It's so much fun for them to celebrate having a small role in the development of these players.
Hey, Pat, it's Billy. How are you? Great to see you. How big of a metric is this, the draft, to base the success of what's happening with your USA Hockey program?
It's a step. It's a piece, right? We look at all these things. The numbers are great. I think we try and obviously pick the best ones. We had a lighter year in the first round, I would say, but great depth. And as Matt mentioned, over 50 players again drafted this year. We had 21 states represented in the draft. I think that's the largest number of states we've ever had at the draft. So when you look at it from that metric, that means more and more places around the country are producing players that could potentially play in the National Hockey League. You look at, I really got a chuckle if you look at Brendan Brisson, who was drafted in the first round by the Vegas Golden Knights, and he grew up and played the majority of his youth hockey career in Los Angeles, California. Like, that's not a conversation we would have had too long ago. And now that's becoming more and more common to have kids from places that we used to think of as non-traditional. We call them newer markets now.
Great stat right there. 21 states, as you just mentioned, Pat. It's Brian Lawton. Thank you for joining us, of course. We always appreciate when we have you on. But the 21 states is great geographical diversity. Where are we at in terms of overall diversity for getting other people involved in this sport? I know we've done great on girls, but what's the next steps? How much time do you put to planning that whole direction for USA Hockey?
That's a big part of what we do now, Brian. You hit it right there. Our diversity for a long time had been getting more girls into our game, and we've seen that happen. Now it's really how do we make the game more appealing, and how do we reach out to more people of color to get involved with our sport? We think, those of us who've grown up with it, like all of you have, that it's the greatest sport going, and we feel provides a huge benefit to kids' lives. So how do we make sure that everybody has the opportunity to play? Those are challenges we talk about regularly here. And with our volunteers and people across the country, we've started to do more with different groups to help us be educated in diversity and inclusion and how to understand what people are looking for when they choose a sport, maybe a non-traditional sport for their children. But how do we find those people? How do we reach out and make sure they understand that hockey is inclusive and that we want people of diverse backgrounds to be involved in our sport? We don't have the answer yet, but we're working at it, and we're trying to find ways to include more people of color in our sport every day.
Hey, Pat, how are you handling the chaotic scene that we're seeing right now in our country where day to day things can change?
Yeah, as I've said since March 11th or 12th, I think when it really started to impact us, has this been a fluid situation, and it remains that way. However, we are finding ways to coexist with COVID across the country. We have youth programs going. We have adult programs going. We've put out a lot of information and resources through our Chief Medical Officer, Mike Stewart, who's at the Mayo Clinic, to all of our youth programs. How do we provide guidelines to people to allow children and families to get back to the rinks in as safe as manner as possible? We actually just put out a memo to our 650,000 plus members yesterday to remind them that we still have a ways to go in this pandemic. We don't know when it's going to end, but we do know if we take the proper measures that we can have hockey played safely in a lot of communities. We have to limit exposure. We're limiting locker rooms. We're doing all sorts of those little things, and we're reminding people at the grassroots level to be aware of that. And again, focus on making the playing environment as safe as possible for kids so that we can allow hockey back in their lives, which is such an important, not only physical activity for kids, but a mental health and awareness as well. So it's really important to have hockey back in our lives.
Yeah, great point. And it's also a very nice diversion for people who are watching it from the stands or on TV in this case. Pat Kelleher, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you guys. Thanks for all you do.